Hello, you're welcome to Living a Full Life Forum. Today we are discussing a very important topic, and that is intimate relationships and how the wounded soul can affect it. As human beings, we are created to be social. We are supposed to connect with each other. We are supposed to form close relationships. The better our social support, the more healthy we end up being physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so the state of our soul can actually affect, how we relate with each other. And that is why it's important that we cover this topic. There are people who come to hospital, with physical manifestations of illnesses that actually stem from the soul. And many of these are from dysfunctional families. They're having failing relationships. And we are having high divorce rates and all kinds of issues happening at family level. And many of these are stemming from the wounded soul. So we need to take time to get healing and to look into our lives to make sure that any gaping wounds are really cared for and totally healed, so we can be the whole people we are meant to be. Childhood is supposed to be a time of innocence, a time of free living, a time of joy. But it can actually be a time that is full of trauma for that family that is dysfunctional. A child growing up in a family that doesn't give good values, that doesn't have the good social support, can end up being very traumatized. And then it becomes a spiral because they end up into relationships and they carry their wounds forward into these relationships. And the relationships crack, and then the wounding is even more. And the children they have born in those relationships end up suffering even much more. And that is why we are here today. So some of these soul wounds, like we have seen in other videos, can come as a result of physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. There may be neglect, of vital needs in the life of a child or even an adult. It may be a natural disaster or a great calamity like the loss of a dear one. So all these end up creating wounds in our soul. They end up creating those wounds, in our minds. And so what happens is that the brain tries to adapt, with signals that are negative signals that are constantly coming in. And studies have reported that people have, experienced adverse events, as children or even adults. They end up having decrease in the volume of their brain in those areas which are responsible for managing our feelings and our thought processes. So meaning this can end up being a permanent venture if it is not dealt with. A child who has faced serious trauma can end up having dysfunctionality in their relationships just because their brains have now been tuned, to that negative output they have received. The negative input they have received. So they end up failing to create intimate relationships, which can really affect their life. And so we are going to now share briefly how these relationships are affected when we have soul wounds. I have grown up, in a family that has had major issues. And so some of these come from my own, experiences and the girls and boys and men and women I have worked with for life. I've seen that most of the people who have had soul wounds end up having challenges with trusting people. Trust in a relationship is very vital. If there is no trust, it becomes very difficult to form intimacy, to be close. And now people who have experienced trauma, they know from their past that the people they trusted most actually hurt them, did not meet their expectations. A child who has grown up, in a home that is full of violence, or they've seen their caregiver, mistreating them and not living up to the expectations, they end up realizing that the people who matter most in their life actually fall short many times. And so they keep their guards high because they know that in life you cannot trust people, because the people who are primarily their caregivers did not prove, trustworthy. So as they grow up and form intimate relationships, they end up failing to trust. So a relationship where there is no trust, affects the closeness of the relationship. So where there is a high level of need for commitment, these are people who withdraw, they pull back a bit, and they don't want to fully commit. So it ends up affecting the flow of the relationship. Incidentally, where there is lack of commitment, they end up putting in being there. They can be there as long as the relationship doesn't, deserve that, they give in all, their all. So it ends up putting people in a trap that where they're supposed to be committed, for instance, in a marriage relationship, they will not give in all. But then when they are faced with extramarital affairs, they give in fully, because there's no need to fully commit. So it leads to a lot of infidelity and so breakages in relationships. So that is why your wounded soul may be the reason why you're finding it very difficult to trust. You end up doubting whether the person actually loves you. You doubt whether they're actually genuine just because you've never trusted. So that is why you need to take time and heal from that wounded soul. The second thing is the fear of intimacy. You see, in a love relationship, we need to realize that there's vulnerability. You just have to be vulnerable and you have to trust. So where you have been hurt before, there's always a tendency to put high guards around you because you do not want a situation where the pain will be repeated, where someone will hurt you again, considering the fact that you've been hurt before. I looked at the situations before I got healing, how I really kept everyone far away because I just didn't want anyone in my personal space because I wasn't sure whether they wouldn't hurt me again. Growing up in a polygamous family, that is really a dysfunctional family. And so you see all these things happening and you're like, you know what, I will not accept this nonsense to happen in my life. I'll not accept, any man to do whatever I'm seeing happening around. So you put high guards. Now those high guards can protect you in the times when you're not yet in an intimate relationship. But when you start relating, those high guards become actually the barriers between you and your partner. So I always, had this aggression and defense around me to make sure that no one comes close. And it was really breaking my heart and breaking, the entire relationship. Until I realized that, sometimes you just have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. And then there will be some degree of flow in a relationship. The third thing is communication difficulties, okay? So people who have been traumatized, who have soul wounds, have not been allowed to express their emotions or their feelings in a healthy way. You see, when feelings are bottled up, they can become pain, it can cause a lot of pressure internally and give outbursts of emotions that are irrational. So when we do not heal from our soul wounds, we end up not being able to communicate our feelings very well. And a relationship where there is no appropriate communication will easily break. So you find these are people who may end up becoming very defensive, or they just withdraw, or they blame a lot instead of clearly outlining, whatever issue they are faced with. So it is important that we take time to heal so that when you have a feeling, when you have, some emotions, you're able to channel them in the right way. And then your partner may also respond likewise in a good way. Otherwise, if we keep channeling our emotions and our feelings through negative communications, it will not hold an intimate relationship. And so there will always be fights, which ends up causing even more and more problems. Okay, the fourth thing is people who have wounded souls tend to have poor attachment styles. You see, as we grow up, or when we are born into families, we form bonds with the people who are close to us. So when a mother is breastfeeding the child and looking into the face of that child, they are having that communication. Okay, so the baby is close to the body of the mother, so some bond is happening. As the child grows up, they know that this is my protector, this is the one who feeds me, so they form that relationship. Now, if in any way the mother is going through a lot of trauma, or maybe depression, or it's a dysfunctional family, now the child expects protection from the mother or the parent, but instead they're being treated, the other way. Okay, so that attachment ends up being seared. It doesn't form as well. So the one who has grown up in a family where there is a lot of security, a family that is functional, ends up forming secure attachment, to the family, but also to people around. These are people who easily love, they easily connect with others, and they are able to form close relationships because they are not bringing that attachment out of a wounded soul. And it's like they have trust in people. And that is a very good attachment style, the secure attachment style. However, there are two mal, or abnormal attachment styles that we need to watch out for. And just pay attention to this, because if you fall into any of these categories, then you know that there's work to be done. Number one, the anxious attachment style. So these are people who are always anxious about, the relationship they're in. They have a fear of abandonment. They think that maybe this relationship will not work. Maybe the person will abandon me eventually. Maybe the person doesn't actually love me. Now that one, it means that whatever decisions they are making it out of fear of abandonment. And most times it comes from the fact that, an adult in the past or someone they trusted abandoned them or neglected them. And so they carry it on. Now, in a relationship where you have someone who is constantly fearing that you're going to leave them, they're so insecure, and all that. No one wants that, to be in a relationship like that. Someone always wants to be reassured that, they're good and all that. Please, no one wants to come into a relationship and help you carry your excess baggage, of the need for reassurance, the need to be kept safe, the need for you to know that your partner is being faithful. So that anxious attachment style can really be difficult and traumatizing in a relationship. The other is the avoidant attachment style. There are people who have been hurt in the past, and so they accept going into a relationship, but on condition that they're going to keep at a distance. So emotionally, they fail to connect with their partners. They just keep at a distance because they do not want to be hurt. They've been hurt in the past, so they have to really make sure they avoid. So they withdraw. Their emotions are closed in there. So sometimes some of them, they actually want to be loved. They want that closeness. They want their partner to be close. And yet when their partner is trying to be close, they withdraw. So it's some push and pull, push and pull mechanism, which ends up straining a relationship very much. So make sure you look at that type of attachment you have with your close friends, with your intimate partner and all that, and see whether you fall into either the secure type, the anxious type, or the avoidant type. Okay. So the fifth is emotional instability. Soul wounds cause a lot of erratic emotions because many times you draw from the past. I remember a young girl I was talking to who told me how she had to break up from this relationship because the boyfriend just couldn't hold it back whenever he got angry. And the reason this happened is that he repeatedly, talked of the experiences he had seeing his father beating, the mother. So he was traumatized as a child. Now, instead of learning from the situation, behavior is learned. Instead of learning the positive way, he learned the negative way because there's no other way. He thought that is how women are supposed to be treated. And so the anger he had towards the dad, now he would channel it out, towards the girlfriend. And so one time they were at a party and she was talking to a few friends here and there, and then he got impatient over something and just came and slapped her. Now that is really something outrageous, okay? But if you don't heal from your soul wounds, that is what you're setting yourself up for. So you find that many people end up being very impulsive, they are withdrawn, they have erratic emotional outbursts, and all because of the wounded soul. And all these things cannot keep an intimate relationship going. And finally, there is what we call trauma reenactment, okay, or the repetitive conflict. Someone who has been traumatized by a certain figure ends up being attracted or attractive to, similar traits. It is very strange, but you find that if they have suffered abuse in the past, they are familiar with that person. Instead of running away from such characters, you find that they end up, getting into another relationship of someone who is similar to that one who hurt them. Why? Their wounds are still gaping, and they just want that familiar ground, hoping that this time around things will work, hoping that this time around, even when the person has a similar personality like the other person, this time around they're going to act differently, and this will help in the healing from the past trauma. Now that cannot happen. The best thing is to first heal from the trauma, and then you will stop attracting the wrong people around you, the people who have hurt you in the past. So we cannot go about with our wounds and think that we're not going to attract the wrong elements. We'll end up attracting flies just because we haven't healed. So in relationships, if you find someone repeatedly going and failing in relationships, it's possibly because they're attracting the wrong people, and these people are going to hurt them even more, and just because the wounds are still gaping, and they are hoping that this time round possibly the outcome will be different. It will never be, as long as you keep attracting the wrong people to your life. And so what can we do, to be able to have intimate relationships and keep them as we heal from our soul wounds? Number one, we need to seek help. You need to seek help. You cannot be in that relationship and you're hurting and you're not able to communicate, you're not forming the good attachment style, and you think that relationship will survive. You need to seek help. You need to realize that you have been traumatized, you have been hurt in the past, and so seek counseling, seek psychotherapy, seek family therapy. There are all kinds of therapies that we can go through. Sometimes walking the journey with someone will actually help you. At Living a Full Life Forum, we are very, very available to walk with you through your pain, and we believe that you will see a change. We've seen many who have really come out of their emotional pains and the traumas they've experienced. The second is you need to look into your life and try to find out where you are traumatized. Accept it. If you look at the other videos, we've gone through the process of healing from, childhood trauma and all kinds of issues, manipulation and control and all that. So you can look at all those other videos. They will be very helpful. But make sure you know where your problem is coming from. Was it a dysfunctional family? Was it some grief? Was it some relationship that went bad? Whatever it was it some sexual abuse? Any physical problem that you experience, physical violence and all that? Make sure you go through that, relieve the process, and start, your healing process. The third is learn your attachment style right there where you are. In your relationship with an intimate partner or with friends and family, just scan and look at how you attach to people. Are you the secure type who easily loves and accepts love? Are you the anxious type who is always wondering whether they're going to leave you again? Are you the avoidant type who is wanting love and yet keeping a distance and not wanting to commit yourself? Where are you? And then now start working on that. We need to learn when we are having communication issues. Be open with yourself. Look at how you communicate. Do you communicate out of anger, out of fear? Do you easily withdraw? Are you open with your feelings and emotions? If you are not, it means that these are things that you now have to focus and work on. Okay? Practice emotional regulation. If you realize you have outbursts, don't be like my friend's ex-boyfriend, where you just burst out amidst people and you just can't control yourself just because you saw women being treated like that. It's time for you to heal from that. Work on building trust. We cannot stay around in a relationship where we are not trusting. You just have to learn to trust and give in the trust and allow to be vulnerable, especially in an intimate relationship, with the hopes that things will be better, things will be good this time around. Okay? The self-care is always very important. When you realize that you are going through difficult times out of the trauma you've experienced in the past, make sure you have ample time to care for your own needs. Eat well, sleep, get enough sleep, exercise, have a lot of me time where you can internalize and look at who exactly you are and try to connect with yourself. And finally, which is one of my favorite, be patient and kind with yourself. The process of healing doesn't occur in one day, just like no fever just goes off just in one day. Okay, most times it is a process, and so make sure that you go through the process. A wound takes time to heal. Many things have to come into place. The tissues have to reorganize themselves, and and the blood flow and all that. So even your soul wounds may take time, but just be at it and don't give up. And through that, I believe we are going to maintain intimate relationships that are healthy, and then we will be protected from all kinds of diseases that will come because of our soul wounds. Thank you very much for being part of Living a Full Life Forum. Please do subscribe and make sure you share the link with others. I'm sure there are many who will be able to benefit. Have a blessed time.